What's up, y'all? I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to my last video, which was about liquidity crisis. I wanted to explain it a little bit more. But first, I want to talk quick about what happened in the stock market today. We saw a quick plummet in the stock market, which is to be expected. I'm super happy about that because I've been shorting the markets and making up pretty good for it. So, and that's just from experience. I think about it. It's winter time, okay? So cyclically, winter time, the stock market is weak. And everybody waits for what's known as the Santa Claus rally to come about the end of the year. So yeah, we could get another Santa Claus rally. But I mean, if you are like me as a Christian, you believe that the Satanists rule the world, what is the best time to make markets crash? You make them crash when everybody's supposed to be getting gifts and celebrating. This is like the most crammed holiday season quarter of the year, right? You get all your Thanksgivings, your Halloweens, your Christmas, your New Year's. A lot of people buy gifts at that time, and some people like me are born in that time. I'm a November 30th baby, so as a November baby, I gotta get birthday gifts. So what's the best way to hurt people? If you're a Satanist, you like to hurt people, right? You want people to feel bad because it's that negative energy that feeds your Lord, right? So the best time to do it is during that season when people are spending a lot of money and shopping, and Black Friday and Cyber Saturday, Cyber Monday, or whatever. You know, all these times when people are going to be trying to look for deals, you pinch them in the pocketbook so they can't afford it, so that they get this disappointing feeling inside and this hatred for others and jealousy, and it just feeds the animosity that leads to strife and division within our country. So why not short, right? Makes perfect sense to me. Short during that time so that if you have a job, you're making money, so money's coming in, you have an income stream. You put the short on as an insurance against that bad economy, and you don't have to worry, right? Because it's supplemental income for you then, right? You make more money, and you'll have a lot more money to spend then when you finally do go shopping, because now, not only are you working, you're making money on the downside when the markets crash, and it's also a little bit of a hedge in case your job goes up in smoke. You now have short positions which are leveraged, which will make money when the markets crash. So you have a little more spending cash and disposable income in your pocket. So that's the way I saw it. I was happy about that. The other thing is, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you look at what's going on in the economy. How many stores are closing? I mean, you got stores galores closing, right? They're all over the place shutting down because they can't make their payments. They don't have enough customers. They owe too much money. Credit. Now, credit is what's leading us into the liquidity crisis talk, because credit is the big problem here. It's the problem globally. Everybody's decided to borrow because, you know what, I want to buy something today. I can't do that because I don't have money, because I got to work for it. And my job doesn't pay me enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to the bank, and the bank's interest rates are low. I'm just going to borrow it. If you wonder what I'm doing with my arm, I'm blocking off the license plates so they're harder to read because I'm doing this video. But, you know, maybe I'll do something else instead of that so I don't have to worry about that. Boom, right there, like that. How's that? How's that? Anyway, so the interest rates are part of the problem with the credit crisis. Because people wanted to borrow, and the banking system in 2008 was supposed to collapse, right? They don't want to collapse the banking system, because that's how the elites, that's how all the wealthy people make money, because they lend it out to others and they turn their cash into an asset, because then their cash can then earn more cash by lending it out to you, which is the way poor people should be thinking, but poor people don't think that way. Poor people want to look rich without being rich. They want to go out and buy the Maserati. They want to go out and buy the Mercedes. They want to go out and buy the Rolex watch or the Gucci bags, the Prada shoes, all the good stuff, without having the wallet to support it. So they have champagne taste with a beer wallet. And so the banks want everybody borrowing money. What did they do in 2008? They slammed down interest rates. And they kept selling people on the idea that it's your time to own a home. You should own a home. Well, think about that also. What is a home? Does a home make you money, or does it take you money? Right? And in effect, the home is actually just the loan, because the home is not yours until you've got it paid off. And even then, it's still not yours, because the reality of it is you still have to pay property tax. You have to pay maintenance. A home is not an asset. It's a liability. Constantly sucking money out of your pocket. I got that from Robert Kiyosaki years ago when I was a little kid. And I got his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that started to teach me about assets and liabilities. And I really needed that book. That's an excellent book. Even though it's a bit out of date now, I still recommend it to people because the knowledge is never out of date. So you have assets and you have liabilities. And the rich people think in terms of assets. They think in terms of things that bring in money. Because most people don't think in terms of assets. They are their asset. They're the only thing that's bringing money into them. They can consider their bank account an asset, but really the banks don't pay you jack for putting money into their accounts. And really what you're doing is you're lending money to the banks. And you're agreeing. You're not like a rich person. When a rich person lends money, they want to set the interest rate. They look at you and they go, you know what, you're risky to me, or whatever, or you're going to keep it this long, that's risky to me. Oh, you're a better risk? Okay, all right, then I'll charge you less. And they price the money that they lend out through the interest rate that they charge. And, on average, it'll be, 7-8%. The more risky you are, the higher the percentage. And a rich person may like a higher percentage. They may, depending upon their age, want the higher return. So they may charge you a 15 to 20% interest rate, kind of like a credit card company does. They're going to charge you a high APR on that loan. So, but the average person doesn't think like a rich person. Instead, they loan their money to a bank, because that's really what you're doing. In your mind, they've conned you into believing you're depositing your cash for safekeeping. But no, they're stealing the cash from you. They've sold to you the fact that you can put the money in the bank and it'll be there. And then they're going to pay you 0.1% on your money, compounding. Compounding is important because compounding, you can still make a lot of money if it's compounding. However, if inflation is at 20%, I don't even need to calculate inflation for you. All you have to do is go to the store and keep tabs on how much you pay every year for a certain basket of goods. Don't even listen to what the Federal Reserve does, because the Federal Reserve puts together their own basket of goods and services and then keeps track of them to see the price changes, and then they tell us that's what inflation is. But not everybody buys the same basket that the Fed has put together. You may like steak. The Fed may have dog food in there. You're not going to eat dog food. You eat steak. So watch the price of steak. Calculate the change in price. And then you can calculate your personal inflation rate. And to see if the money that you earn when you go to work is making you money. But I'm going to say it's about 20% on average. Just based on some of the things the Fed still has in their basket, but they're manipulating the interest rates so it looks lower. Interest rates are at 20%. You're only earning 0.1% compounded in the bank. There's no way, even compounded, you're going to be able to outpace inflation. It's going to eat your money away. And then at the same time, our economy is collapsing because it's been built on credit and globalism. And you got people like Christine Lagarde of the IMF telling us not to be self-sufficient. This is the problem with globalism, okay? I studied Argentina back when I was in business school. And Argentina had this, they had this presidential election that where the main candidate was yelling "hope and change," like President Obama when he was running. Hope and change, hope and change. People, for some reason, they don't believe in God, which is a matter of hope and change, but they're willing to believe a person who stands up there and yells hope and change. Who would you rather put your faith in? A God that will give you hope and change, or a person known to lie, known to cheat, known to steal, who gives you hope and change? I'd rather put my faith in God that hope and change will come than a person who changes the laws. And they do hope and change. They make you hope that everything's going to be great, but then they change the laws against your favor. But anyway, Argentina did the same thing, hope and change. And what happened? That president, I don't remember his name because it's been a number of years since I've been in college, but that president began to globalize Argentina, and they began outsourcing their food supply, all their production. Exact same thing that happened under Clinton, Bush, Obama, the globalists in the United States. The globalist presidents who signed NAFTA and affirmed NAFTA so that, move that a little bit, so that when we wanted to do things, it was businesses were able to go outside of the country where it's cheaper because our inflation was high. And then when you create credit within a country, people are borrowing money like crazy and they're investing it in places that they really shouldn't be doing. So you get more inflation, especially with credit. Credit is like, the kind of inflation you get from credit is like a compressor in a balloon. It's a compressor machine that you just have going, and it's pumping air constantly into the balloon, as opposed to earning your income. The type of inflation that happens when you earn your income is like blowing from your own lungs into a balloon. It takes forever when you do it yourself, and it's a lot of effort and it's more tiring. But the balloon will inflate more proportionally and slower so that you can assess how big is that balloon getting before it's going to pop. And you can actually stop without popping it. But with a compressor, if you walk away and you just let the compressor automate the blowing, boom, that balloon will blow up. And that's basically what happened in our economy with credit. We switched from an earning type of economy where everybody worked hard, manufactured, was self-reliant, did things themselves, made money themselves, managed and spent that money themselves, to one where we've outsourced it to the government, because the left has somehow crept into the freedom-minded thinking of the people of the United States and made them believe that they're too stupid to decide things for themselves, and so the government needs to do it for them. And so, which to me is stupid thinking. Maybe those people do need government to watch over them. And I mean, because honestly, when you think about it, you're a person. If you're too stupid to make a decision for yourself, you're going to go to another person who's too stupid to make the decision for yourself, but you're going to let them make that decision for yourself. And then you wonder why economies collapse and rise and fall. And then you're going to blame it on Trump, who's a new president, 2 years. But you had 12 years, 16 years, many years of presidents before him that set up all these stupid trade deals that made globalism happen so that the banks could then come in and get everybody hooked on credit, on money they didn't earn. All right, so interest rates have been low for a long time. And you put your money in the bank, your money value is being eroded in certain ways. And then at the same time, the economy is eroding. And what do we have now? We have the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. All right, so let's look at this. The price of money being borrowed or lent is interest rate, okay? Just think of it that way. The interest rate tells you how much you're going to pay to borrow money. All right, so when the interest rates are low, the cost to borrowing money is low. So that's what they did in 2008. They subsidized borrowing, or they helped borrowing occur because the economy was going to crash and the banks were going to crash, and you had Bear Stearns going under, and long-term capital management before that went under, and all these banks were going under. So they scared everybody into believing that low credit environment and home ownership was the way to go. So people borrowed money, and they fed this globalism system where our self-reliance was shipped overseas. It was outsourced because it's too expensive for us to do things for ourselves here. It's much cheaper to go to a place like China where they have no human rights and you can abuse people, and they will do work for like a penny a day, and they will live together with multiple families in a little apartment house just to survive, because a year's worth of salary wouldn't be able to get them an apartment on their own. So we could go to all these other countries. Usually the leftists were pushing globalism because they always push together, and together only works when you get everybody together, right? Globalism is about getting everybody together, right? So if you're a leftist and you talk about human rights and you always march against companies like Nike that like to do things overseas where they have slave labor, you're a freaking hypocrite if you like globalism and you like being a leftist and you like this Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama forward together, stronger together philosophy. Because in order to be strong together, someone else has to be weak, right? In order for power to flow somewhere, it has to be taken from somewhere else. Otherwise, you have balance in the world. Balance in the world means there's only so much power for everybody. If you're the type that always wants power, I'm telling you, man, that's problematic. And your thinking is screwy. You're a hypocrite, a leftist hypocrite. So anyway, globalism allowed our businesses, our jobs, everything to be shipped out overseas. And when Ross Perot ran for president against George H.W. Bush, the Daddy Bush, he mentioned that fact. He mentioned that if NAFTA or any type of agreement between Canada and Mexico occurs, because Mexico has the slave labor type people there, where they're willing to work for nothing because they're hungry. They're hungry people, so they need to develop their economy, and they're willing to work no matter what. They've got family. They'll even sell their kids for sex in the sex trade to make money to feed their family, which is part of the problem how pedophilia also formed, and human trafficking, which is a leftist cause again because of globalism and open borders. Anyway, because of that, our businesses were sucked away too. Our jobs are sucked away too. And inflation stabilized within the United States. Why? Because now people are not investing in businesses and stuff in the United States. They're investing in stuff overseas, across the border. So if the prices rise in Mexico or in China or in Vietnam or in Indonesia or Pakistan or Bangladesh or any other place, or Brazil, any other place in the world where their economy is not as developed as ours, they can get inflation over there. Do you care? Do you feel it when the price of the Brazilian currency goes in the toilet? No, you don't. The Brazilians feel it. And they're the same people that we're supposed to be helping, right? Because they're poor. We're supposed to lift them out of poverty, and that's what globalism was about doing, is about getting the economies there emerging and growing so that they could earn to make a living for their families and live the kind of standard of lifestyle for us. But when the prices are high, they are living the lifestyle like us. We can all barely afford to feed our families, and we can barely afford to pay our bills because things are too expensive. So this is what I'm talking about. The interest rates being too low created a situation for people to get in debt. Too much. Way too much. Because at some point, you keep getting a credit card bill. Yeah, in the beginning, let's say you get a credit card with, like, say, $1,000 balance. You can pay that $1,000 balance. With minimum wage, you can still make enough money to make your monthly payments or even to pay off your bill completely. So you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can get out of debt easily. But let's say you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 credit cards, and the banks keep giving you the credit cards, and they keep giving you these high loans, you know, for like $10,000, $25,000, $100,000 credit limit, you know, and you fill it up, you're maxing it out every week just to get your food, just to pay your bills, and then you're using credit cards to pay credit cards with revolving debt. You're in big trouble. Because at some point, your credit borrowing outpaces your earning capacity. And we got into it again. Right? We had the crash in 2008. And what did they do? Over time, they instituted Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank put restrictions on the banking system and on the investment system and on people. And then eventually they're like, okay, we solved the problem. Let's unroll the Dodd-Frank stuff. And let's start doing the loans again. And they amped it up with derivatives too. So now you look at businesses. Businesses have too much debt. They can't afford it. You got businesses like Toys R Us went out of business. Mattress Firm out of business. Charming Charlie's, Bebe's. All these different businesses are hurting so bad they can't keep up with their debt because they're not earning enough to service their debt. So they got to shut doors. They got to go bankrupt. Sears Holdings is another one. Sears Kmart, right? So it was a no-brainer to me. We're going to go into depression first. I used to think hyperinflation first, but 2008 taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me the lesson that the dollar, when you think the dollar is about to go in the toilet, like right now we're hearing from Venezuela, oh, they got the new cryptocurrency, El Petro, right? The El Petro is backed by a certain amount of diamonds and oil. You're a fool if you believe that it's backed by anything. Because first of all, Venezuela is a communist country. It is the epitome of socialism in real time. You're watching currently how they're falling apart and their currency is going in the toilet. If they're a producer of oil, they're making earnings, right? Why would their currency be going in the toilet? See, because you're finding out it's a communist country, so everything's controlled by the government. The idiots that many of the idiots give their control to. They give their sovereignty away to the idiots because they think they're too idiot to roll themselves, so they give it to the other idiots to control it. And you get something like Venezuela where the currency is going in the toilet, so they had to create this cryptocurrency called the Petro to give the government funding because the government doesn't produce oil themselves. They got all this oil over in Venezuela. They don't produce it themselves. The cost of production is too high because the government put too many regulations and everything, and they don't. And when you put regulations on business, innovation dies because if you can't do something, why would you invent new ways of doing it? Oops, took that turn a little too sharp. Yeah, you can't do something. Why would you invent new ways of doing it? Because innovation comes from necessity, right? Ben Franklin, necessity is the mother of invention. And so when you can do all kinds of things and you have a need to innovate because, now there are all these new ways of doing things, you'll invent new innovative ways of doing things. And you get more efficiency, you get better competition, lower prices. Not so in Venezuela. And so, I knew they're going to want to get the dollar when their currency gets all crushed. And Venezuela's communist, so they don't want to get the dollar from the United States. So what do? They float their own cryptocurrency. This is why I've invested in cryptocurrencies, because I know it's coming. It's coming. You guys don't believe, but it's coming. I tell people what I'm doing, and then they can copy it. And if they copy it, they'll prosper. But if they don't, it's not. That's water off a duck's back to me. I'm the duck. I'll just get that water in there, and I'll just let it slip right off my back. I don't care what you're doing, because you don't listen when I give you advice. So, anyway, you're seeing this emerging market crisis where everybody in other countries, you have to think about it. Those countries are not stable. They don't have stable government, and the people know it because they've been living in the socialism and the garbage all their lives. So they don't put their faith in the government, their government. So when their currency goes in the toilet, what do? They look to the United States because the United States is one of the few bastions of freedom and stability out in the world because we've had freedom. We've had people allowed to do things in the past before the leftists came in and started regulating all our businesses. And so wealth accumulated in the United States. So everybody looked to the United States as the wealthy, stable country to go to, and they look at the currency as something, as a safe haven. So I saw that back in 2008 when things were crashing. Here I was thinking we're going to have hyperinflation, and I have all my gold and silver. My gold and silver did well at first, and then you get what's known as capitulation, right? Because initially, the governments around the world and the people around the world are grabbing for United States dollars for a safe haven. So the value of the dollar starts to shoot through the roof. And if everyone around the world is doing it, the currency value just skyrockets. And then what happens is people who invested in gold and silver invested in it because they expected the value of the dollar to go in the toilet. Well, gold and silver, I said invested, but really gold and silver are not investments. They are speculations. They're speculative vehicles. You put your money in there and you hope the price will change. You don't know if it's going to change or not, but you hope the price will change. Cryptocurrencies are like that. You don't know what the price is going to be. I do it based on a fundamental value. I know what money is. I know, I've studied the history of money. Money has been something that holds value. So in other words, it does not deteriorate. Oil can deteriorate over time. It goes bad. You have to use it. Food deteriorates over time. A rock, if it rains enough